Who really Donald Trump is? Billionaire real estate mogul and former reality television personality Donald Trump is the 45th President of the United States. Donald John Trump is the 45th and current President of the United States. He took office on January 20, 2017. Previously, he was a real estate mogul and a former reality TV star. Born in Queens, New York, in 1946, Trump became involved in large, profitable building projects in Manhattan. In 1980, he opened the Grand Hyatt New York, which made him the city's best-known developer. In 2004, Trump began starring in the hit NBC reality series The Apprentice. Trump turned his attention to politics, and in 2015 he announced his candidacy for President of the United States on the Republican ticket. After winning a majority of the primaries and caucuses, Trump became the official Republican candidate for president on July 19, 2016. That November, Trump was elected the 45th President of the United States, after defeating Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump's family. Donald Trump's parents and siblings. Father Trump's father, Frederick Trump, was a builder and real estate developer who specialized in constructing and operating middle-income apartments in Queens, Staten Island and Brooklyn. Mother Trump's mother, Mary McLeod, immigrated from Tong, Scotland, in 1929 at the age of 17. She and Fred Trump married in 1936. The couple settled in Jamaica, Queens, a neighborhood that was, at the time, filled with Western European immigrants. As the family's wealth increased, Mary became a New York socialite and philanthropist. Fred died in 1999, and Mary passed away the following year. Siblings. Donald was the fourth of 5 children. Mary Ann Trump Berry was a senior judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, but took an inactive stance soon after her brother became president. Fred Trump Jr. worked briefly with his father and then became a pilot. He struggled with alcohol and died in 1981 at the age of 43, prompting Donald to announce that he never drinks alcohol or take drugs. "He had a profound impact on my life, because you never know where you're going to end up," Trump said. Elizabeth Trump Grau is a retired banker who is married to film producer James Grau. Robert Trump is Donald's younger brother who spent much of his career working for the family company. Donald Trump's wives. Melania Trump. Trump is currently married to former Slovenian model Melania Trump, née Knaus, who is more than 23 years his junior. In January 2005, the couple married in a highly publicized and lavish wedding. Among the many celebrity guests at the wedding were Hillary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton. Ivana Trump. In 1977, Trump married his first wife Ivana Trump, née Zelníková Winkelmeyer, a New York fashion model who had been an alternate on the 1972 Czech Olympic ski team. She was named vice president in charge of design in the Trump Organization and played a major role in supervising the renovation of the Commodore and the Plaza Hotel. The couple had 3 children together, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka and Eric. They went through a highly publicized divorce that was finalized in 1992. Marla Maples. In 1993, Trump married his second wife, Marla Maples, an actress with whom he had been involved for some time and already had a daughter, Tiffany. Trump would ultimately file for a highly publicized divorce from Maples in 1997, which became final in June 1999. A prenuptial agreement allotted $2 million to Maples. Donald Trump's children. Trump has 5 children. He and his first wife, Ivana Trump, had 3 children together, Donald Trump Jr., born in 1977, Ivanka Trump, born in 1981, and Eric Trump, born in 1984. Trump and his second wife, Marla Maples, had daughter Tiffany Trump in 1993. And current wife Melania Trump gave birth to Trump's youngest child, Baron William Trump, in March 2006. Trump's sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, work as executive vice presidents for the Trump Organization. They took over the family business while their father serves as president. Trump's daughter Ivanka was also an executive vice president of the Trump Organization. She left the business and her own fashion label to join her father's administration and become an unpaid assistant to the president. Her husband, Jared Kushner, is also a senior advisor to President Trump. Donald Trump's childhood and education. Trump was born on June 14, 1946, in Queens, New York. He was an energetic, assertive child. In the 1950s, the Trump's wealth increased with the post-war real estate boom. At age 13, Trump's parents sent him to the New York Military Academy, hoping the discipline of the school would channel his energy in a positive manner. He did well at the academy, both socially and academically, rising to become a star athlete and student leader by the time he graduated in 1964. Trump entered Fordham University in 1964. He transferred to the Wharton School of Finance at the University of Pennsylvania 2 years later and graduated in 1968 with a degree in economics. During his years at college, Trump worked at his father's real estate business during the summer. He also secured education deferments for the draft for the Vietnam War and ultimately a 1Y medical deferment after he graduated. Donald Trump's religion. Trump was raised Presbyterian by his mother, and he identifies as a mainline Protestant. Trump's real estate and businesses. Trump followed his father into a career in real estate development, bringing his grander ambitions to the family business. Trump's business ventures include the Trump Organization, Trump Tower, casinos in Atlantic City and television franchises like The Apprentice and Miss Universe. Trump has business deals with the Javits Center and the Grand Hyatt New York, as well as other real estate ventures in New York City, Florida and Los Angeles. Federal income disclosure forms Trump filed in 2017 list Trump's golf courses, including Trump National Doral and Mar-a-Lago in Florida, as earning about half of his income. Other financial ventures include aircraft, merchandise and royalties from his 2 books, The Art of the Deal and Crippled America, How to Make America Great Again. The Art of the Deal. In 1987, Trump published the book The Art of the Deal, co-authored with Tony Schwartz. In the book, Trump describes how he successfully makes business deals. "I don't do it for the money. I've got enough, much more than I'll ever need. I do it to do it. Deals are my art form," Trump wrote. The book made the New York Times bestseller list. Although the number of copies sold has been debated, sales have been estimated at between 1 to 4 million copies to date. Schwartz later became an outspoken critic of the book and of Trump, saying he felt remorseful for helping make the president more appealing than he is. Donald Trump's wealth. Over the years, Trump's net worth have been a subject of public debate. Because Trump has not publicly released his tax returns, it's not possible to definitively determine his wealth in the past or today. However, Trump valued his businesses at least $1.37 billion on his 2017 Federal Financial Disclosure Form, published by the Office of Government Ethics. Trump's 2018 disclosure form put his revenue for the year at a minimum of $434 million from all sources. In 1990, Trump asserted his own net worth in the neighborhood of $1.5 billion. At the time, the real estate market was in decline, reducing the value of an income from Trump's empire. The Trump Organization required a massive infusion of loans to keep it from collapsing, a situation which raised questions as to whether the corporation could survive bankruptcy. Some observers saw Trump's decline as symbolic of many of the business, economic and social excesses that had arisen in the 1980s. A May 2019 investigation by the New York Times of 10 years of Trump's tax information found that between 1985 and 1994, his businesses lost money every year. The newspaper calculated that Trump's businesses suffered $1.17 billion in losses over the decade. Trump later defended himself on Twitter, calling the Times' report a highly inaccurate fake news hit job. He tweeted that he reported losses for tax purposes, and that doing so was a sport among real estate developers. Trump's tax returns. Trump's net worth was questioned over the course of his 2016 presidential run, and he courted controversy after repeatedly refusing to release his tax returns while they were being audited by the Internal Revenue Service. He did not release his tax returns during the election, and he has not to date. It was the first time a major party candidate had not released such information to the public before a presidential election since Richard Nixon in 1972. After Democrats regained control of the House with the 2018 elections, Trump again faced calls to release his tax returns. In April 2019, Congressman Richard Neal, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, requested 6 years' worth of the president's personal and business tax returns from the IRS. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin rejected the request, as well as Neal's follow-up subpoena for the documents. In May, the New York State Assembly passed legislation that authorized tax officials to release the president's state returns to the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, the Senate Finance Committee and the Joint Committee on Taxation for any specified and legitimate legislative purpose. With New York City serving as the home base for the Trump Organization, it was believed that the state returns would contain much of the same information as the president's federal returns. In September 2019, Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr. subpoenaed the accounting firm M.I.X USA for Trump's personal and corporate tax returns dating back to 2011, prompting a challenge from the president's lawyers. A Manhattan federal district judge dismissed Trump's lawsuit in October, though the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit agreed to temporarily delay enforcement of the subpoena while considering arguments in the case. A few days later, that same appeals court rejected Trump's bid to block another subpoena issued to M.I.X USA, this one from the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. Donald Trump and Russian hacking in the 2016 election. Throughout the 2016 presidential election, Trump vehemently denied allegations he had a relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin and was tied to the hacking of the DNC emails. In January 2017, a U.S. intelligence report prepared by the CIA, FBI and NSA concluded that Putin had ordered a campaign to influence the U.S. election. Russia's goals were to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. We further assess Putin and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump, the report said. Prior to the release of the report, President-elect Trump had cast doubt on Russian interference in the intelligence community's assessment. Trump received an intelligence briefing on the matter, and in his first press conference as president-elect on January 11, he acknowledged Russia's interference. However, in subsequent comments he again refused to condemn Russia for such activity, notably saying on multiple occasions that he believed Putin's denials. In March 2018, the Trump administration formally acknowledged the charges by issuing sanctions on 19 Russians for interference in the 2016 presidential election and alleged cyber attacks. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin delivered the announcement, with the president remaining silent on the matter. In July, days before Trump was to meet with Putin in Finland, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein announced additional charges against 12 Russian intelligence officers accused of hacking the DNC and the Clinton campaign. Meeting with Vladimir Putin, the White House announced that Trump would hold his first formal discussions with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, Finland, on July 16, 2018. The two men met on the heels of Trump's heavily scrutinized summit with NATO leaders, and shortly after the Justice Department announced the indictment of 12 Russian operatives for interfering in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Prompted to address the issue of election hacking in a joint news conference for the two leaders, Trump refused to point a finger at his counterpart. "I think we've all been foolish. I think we're all to blame," he said, adding that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today. The comments drew a harsh response stateside, with several notable Republicans joining their Democratic colleagues to question why the president was siding with Putin over his intelligence agencies. Senator McCain called it one of the most disgraceful performances by an American president in memory, and even Trump ally Newt Gingrich weighed in with strong words, tweeting, "It is the most serious mistake of his presidency and must be corrected, immediately." Trump sought to quiet the furor after returning to the White House, insisting that he had misspoken when saying he didn't see why Russia should be blamed and reminding that he has, on numerous occasions, noted our intelligence findings that Russians attempted to interfere in our elections, though he again suggested that other parties could be responsible. Around that time, it was revealed that Trump had instructed Bolton, his national security advisor, to invite Putin to the White House that autumn, news that caught Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats off guard. Bolton soon disclosed that he would postpone the invitation until the conclusion of the special counsel investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Russian sanctions. Despite Trump's overtures to Putin, his administration in February 2019 announced the suspension of the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty with Russia, due to the Eastern powers' repeated violations of the agreement. The announcement gave Russia 180 days to comply with terms before U.S. withdrawal from the treaty would be completed. Syria. On April 6, 2017, Trump ordered a military strike, to which he had tweeted opposition to when Obama was in office, on a Syrian government airfield. The strike was in response to a chemical attack by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad on Syrian civilians that had led to the horrific deaths of dozens of men, women and children. Navy destroyers fired 59 Tomahawk missiles at Shayrat airfield, from where the attack was launched. It was the first direct military action by the United States against Syrian military forces during the country's ongoing civil war. 1 year later, evidence surfaced of another chemical attack on Syrians, with dozens reported dead in the rebel-held city of Douma. Although Syria and its ally, Russia, referred to the situation as a hoax perpetrated by terrorists, Trump wasn't having it. Russia vows to shoot down any and all missiles fired at Syria. "Get ready, Russia, because they will be coming," he tweeted, adding, "You shouldn't be partners with a gas-killing animal who kills his people and enjoys it." The U.S. subsequently joined forces with Britain and France for coordinated strikes on Syria early in the morning of April 14, 2018. Larger than the previous year's operation, this one hit 2 chemical weapons facilities and a scientific research center. Afterward, the president took to Twitter to thank his military allies for their efforts, declaring, "Mission accomplished." In December 2018, Trump announced that U.S. military troops would be pulled from Syria, before changing his mind when that decision was denounced as one that would primarily benefit Assad and his government's main ally, Russia. However, the president reversed course again the following October by ordering U.S. troops withdrawn from northeast Syria to clear the way for a Turkish military operation, one that could threaten American-backed Kurdish insurgents in the area. Again drawing a sharp response from critics, the president made his case on Twitter by arguing it was time to get out of Syria and let other nations in the region figure the situation out, adding that he would respond forcefully if Turkey did anything off-limits. Shortly afterward, he announced he was imposing sanctions on Turkey for a military offensive that was endangering civilians and threatening peace, security, and stability in the region. Death of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. In late October 2019, Trump announced that the leader of the Islamic State, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, was dead following a daring American commando raid in Syria. According to the president, the militant leader was chased to the end of an underground tunnel, whimpering and crying and screaming all the way, before detonating a suicide vest. The announcement came amid the controversy over the withdrawal of troops from the region, with critics pointing to the American military presence and intelligence contributions from Kurdish allies as factors that led to the success of the mission. Trade war. On March 1, 2018, after the conclusion of a Commerce Department investigation, Trump announced that he was imposing tariffs of 25% on steel imports and 10% on aluminum. He ultimately granted temporary exemptions as he sought to renegotiate deals. His actions resulted in new agreements with South Korea and multiple South American countries to restrain their metal exports. Talks with China, the EU and the border countries stalled. In late May, the administration announced that it was moving forward with all tariffs. The move drew a harsh response from the EU, Canada and Mexico, which announced retaliatory measures. With Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau condemning Trump's unacceptable actions and French President Emmanuel Macron threatening to isolate the U.S. from the Group of Seven, the president faced a frosty reception at the G7 summit in Quebec in June. He ultimately left the summit early, making headlines on the way out by announcing he would not sign a communiqué between the 7 nations and taking shots at Trudeau on Twitter. In July, Trump again had harsh words for allies at the NATO summit in Brussels, Belgium, including accusations that Germany was captive to Russia for its dependence on Russian natural gas, and followed with criticism of UK Prime Minister Theresa May for her handling of Brexit. Back home, the president attempted to head off the political fallout of a potentially costly trade war with the announcement that the administration would provide up to $12 billion in emergency relief funds for U.S. farmers. The following summer, the administration revealed details for a new, $16 billion aid package for struggling farmers. China. In April 2018, the Trump administration announced it was adding a 25% tariff on more than 1,000 Chinese products to penalize the country for its trade practices. He granted temporary exemptions to negotiate a deal. In late May, he moved forward with a tax on $34 billion worth of Chinese goods that went into effect in July. The trade war with China escalated in May 2019, when the president gave the go-ahead to raise tariffs to 25% on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods. The increase came as the two countries were attempting to hammer out terms for a new trade deal. The following month, after Trump used the threat of tariffs to obtain expanded border security measures from Mexico, the president turned his attention back to China with the suggestion that another $300 billion in Chinese goods would be taxed should trade talks continue to stall. He announced a 5% hike in late August and threatened another 5% increase by October, before agreeing to delay the latter as he continued to push for an all-encompassing trade deal. In October, the president gushed about the very substantial Phase 1 deal reached with China, saying a final agreement on matters related to intellectual property, financial services and agriculture would take 3 to 5 weeks to put in place. Signed in mid-January 2020, the deal included commitments from China to purchase an additional $200 billion of U.S. products over the next 2 years and to refrain from currency manipulation and intellectual property theft. Iran. In May 2018, over the objections of European allies, Trump announced that he was withdrawing the U.S. from the Iran nuclear deal enacted by his predecessor and reimposing sanctions on the Middle Eastern country. The announcement initially drew a tepid response from Iran, but President Hassan Rouhani had stronger words on the issue while addressing diplomats in July, noting that war with Iran is the mother of all wars, and warning his American counterpart to not play with the lion's tail, because you will regret it eternally. That seemingly enraged Trump, who fired off an all-caps tweet addressed to Rouhani, "Never, ever threaten the United States again or you will suffer consequences the likes of which few throughout history have ever suffered before," he wrote. "We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. Be cautious." Tensions mounted again by April 2019, when the Trump administration announced it would no longer grant economic exemptions to the 5 countries, China, India, Japan, South Korea and Turkey, which had been permitted to buy oil from Iran. Several oil tankers were subsequently attacked near the Strait of Hormuz, with the U.S. holding Iran responsible for the brazen actions. In June 2019, the Iranian military shot down an American drone over contested airspace. Trump said he was minutes away from ordering a strike in retaliation, before electing to impose new sanctions instead. In late December, after an American civilian contractor was killed in a rocket attack on an Iraqi base, the U.S. carried out military strikes against an Iranian-backed militia deemed responsible for the attack. After protesters responded by breaching the outer wall of the U.S. Embassy in Iraq, the animosity escalated with the death of General Qasem Soleimani, Iran's top security and intelligence commander, in a drone strike authorized by President Trump. Cuba ended travel restrictions to pressure Cuba's communist government to reform and end its support for Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Trump tightened travel restrictions to Cuba in April 2019. In June 2019, Trump announced that the State Department would no longer allow private or public ships and aircraft to visit Cuba. The U.S. will also no longer allow people-to-people educational travel, which previously proved to be a popular travel exemption. Tourist groups may still be able to get around the ban by applying one of the other 11 travel exemptions that are still allowed. President Obama loosened travel restrictions to Cuba following decades of détente between the countries, initiating a short-lived travel boom to the area. Trump and Obama birther controversy. Beginning in early 2011, Trump expressed doubts about the validity of Obama's birth country to media outlets. To quell the staunch outcry from birtherists, Obama eventually released his birth certificate in April 2011, verifying that he was born in the United States. Regardless, Trump continued to be a vocal critic of President Obama, not only regarding his place of birth, but also on a variety of his policies. In 2013, Trump tweeted that a Hawaiian state health director, who died of cardiac arrhythmia following a plane crash, was somehow connected to a cover-up of President Obama's birth certificate. In 2016, as he began to clinch his own nomination as the GOP candidate for president, Trump toned down his stance, telling CNN, "I have my own theory on Obama. Someday I will write a book." Later that fall, feeling pressure from his campaign advisors to put the conspiracy theory to rest as part of a strategy to appeal to minority voters, Trump issued a statement: "President Barack Obama was born in the United States, period." At the same time, he also blamed his presidential rival, Hillary Clinton, and her campaign for starting the birther controversy. Sexual assault and rape accusations against Donald Trump. As of June 2019, a total of 16 women have accused Trump of sexual assault. He has denied all accusations. Jean Carroll sexual assault accusations. In June 2019, New York journalist Jean Carroll accused Trump of sexually assaulting her in 1996 at the upscale Manhattan department store Bergdorf Goodman. Carroll says Trump approached her as she was leaving the building and asked for her help buying a gift for a female friend. He led her upstairs to the lingerie department and, after a bit of banter, pinned her in the dressing room, pulled down her tights and sexually assaulted her, according to Carroll's account. When the alleged assault was over, Carroll called her friend, author Lisa Birnbach, to describe the encounter. Birnbach told journalists at the New York Times that she told Carroll that she was raped and should call the police. A couple of days later, Carroll told her friend Carol Martin, a TV host, who advised her to remain silent. Ultimately, Carroll says she blamed herself for going into the dressing room with Trump. Carroll never publicly discussed her story until more than 2 decades later, when she described the alleged rape in her 2019 memoir, What Do We Need Men For? An excerpt was published in advance of the release date in a New York Magazine article. Trump initially said he had never met Carroll. When a photograph surfaced of the two shaking hands, he said he had no idea who she is and called her accusation fiction, designed to sell her new book. Access Hollywood controversy. On October 7, 2016, just 2 days before the second presidential debate between Trump and Clinton, the Republican presidential nominee was embroiled in another scandal when The Washington Post released a 2005 recording in which he lewdly described kissing and groping women, and trying to have sex with then-married television personality Nancy O'Dell. The 3-minute recording captured Trump speaking to Billy Bush, co-anchor of Access Hollywood, as they prepared to meet soap opera actress Ariane Zucker for a segment of the show. "I've gotta use some Tic Tacs, just in case I start kissing her," Trump said in the recording, which was caught on a microphone that had not been turned off. "You know I'm automatically attracted to beautiful, I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. Just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star they let you do it. You can do anything." He also said that because of his celebrity status he could grab women by their genitals. In response, Trump released a statement saying, "This was locker room banter, a private conversation that took place many years ago. Bill Clinton has said far worse to me on the golf course, not even close. I apologize if anyone was offended." Trump later posted a videotaped apology on Facebook in which he said, "I've never said I'm a perfect person, nor pretended to be someone that I'm not. I've said and done things I regret, and the words released today on this more than a decade-old video are one of them. Anyone who knows me knows these words don't reflect who I am. I said it, I was wrong, and I apologize." The backlash was immediate, with some top Republicans, including Senators John McCain, Kelly Ayotte, Mike Crapo, Shelley Moore Capito and Martha Roby, who withdrew their support for Trump. House Speaker Paul Ryan reportedly told fellow GOP lawmakers that he would not campaign with or defend the presidential candidate. Some GOP critics also called for Trump to withdraw from the race, including former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. Trump remained defiant, tweeting that he would stay in the race. Around the same time as the video leak, numerous women began speaking publicly about their past experiences with Trump, alleging he had either sexually assaulted or harassed them based on their looks. Pressuring Ukraine and whistleblower complaint. In September 2019, The Washington Post reported that Trump had ordered the withholding of nearly $400 million in military aid to Ukraine in mid-July, 1 week before a phone call in which he urged Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to investigate Hunter Biden, the son of 2020 presidential candidate Joe Biden. This tied into reports of a whistleblower complaint from the intelligence community regarding communications between Trump and Ukraine, and the failure of the acting director of national intelligence, Joseph Maguire, to relay the complaint to Congress. Trump admitted to discussing Joe and Hunter Biden with Zelensky, and even released a transcript of their conversation, though he denied that he withheld the military aid as a means for pressuring his counterpart into digging up dirt on a political rival. He later doubled down on his assertion that the Bidens needed to be investigated, calling for the Chinese government to do so. In October, as House Democrats attempted to secure testimony from the unidentified whistleblower, reports surfaced of another individual with first-hand knowledge of several allegations noted in the complaint. William B. Taylor, Jr., the acting U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, soon defied State Department orders to share his recollection of events with investigators and corroborate the claims of quid pro quo. He was followed by Alexander Vindman, the top Ukraine expert on the National Security Council, who reportedly confirmed that he was on the phone call between Trump and Zelensky and was concerned that the demand to investigate the Bidens would jeopardize U.S.-Ukraine relations. Democratic calls for impeachment of Donald Trump by the time Mueller's special counsel investigation into Trump ended in March 2019. Some Democrats were calling for the initiation of impeachment proceedings, including 2020 Democratic presidential hopefuls Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. Calls for impeachment grew after Mueller held a press conference regarding his report in May 2019. Mueller said he could not clear the president of obstruction of justice but declined to pursue impeachment, leaving Democrats to decide if Trump's conduct should be investigated for impeachable offenses. However, House Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi were not in favor of pursuing impeachment. In July 2019, after the House voted to condemn Trump for his Twitter comments about 4 congresswomen of color, Democrat Al Green of Texas filed a resolution to launch impeachment proceedings against the president. With most of his Democratic colleagues not yet ready to make the plunge, the resolution was defeated by a 332-95 vote. Impeachment and acquittal. The tide turned with the reports of Trump pressuring the Ukrainian president to investigate Joe and Hunter Biden and the administration's attempt to conceal the whistleblower complaint. On September 24, 2019, Pelosi announced that the House was launching a formal impeachment inquiry against Trump. On October 31, following 5 weeks of investigations and interviews, the House voted 232-196 to approve a resolution that established rules for the impeachment process. All but 2 Democrats and the House's lone independent voted for the measure, while Republicans were unanimous in their opposition. Impeachment hearings commenced on November 13 with testimony from Taylor and another State Department official, as Trump was busy meeting with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey. The following week, Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union, provided more testimony about what he said was a clear case of quid pro quo, noting that Vice President Pence, Secretary of State Pompeo and other top administration officials were aware of Trump's pressure campaign. On December 10, 2019, House Democrats announced they were moving forward with 2 articles of impeachment, charging Trump with abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. 8 days later, the House again voted almost entirely along party lines for the 2 articles, making Trump the 3rd U.S. president to be impeached by the House, after Andrew Johnson, in 1868, and Bill Clinton, in 1998. President Richard Nixon resigned before he could be impeached. The Senate trial formally began on January 21, 2020, with 7 House Democrat impeachment managers arguing their case of Trump's abuses against the president's legal defense that everything was valid. Although former National Security Advisor John Bolton lurked as a potential wild card, following reports that his upcoming book revealed more evidence of Trump tying Ukraine aid to political investigations, his account became irrelevant when the Senate voted against allowing additional witnesses on January 31. The impeachment saga came to an end on February 5, 2020, when the Senate voted along party lines to acquit President Trump on both charges. Mitt Romney, now Senator of Utah, was the lone Republican to vote to convict on the charge of abuse of power. Coronavirus. After taking a victory lap for beating back the impeachment attempt, Trump faced a new challenge with the emergence of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, from China. The White House initially requested $2.5 billion in emergency funding to deal with the outbreak, a reflection of the president's belief that the threat wasn't particularly dire, though lawmakers on both sides of the aisle suggested that number was too low. On February 26, 2020, the same day that the 60th known coronavirus patient was recorded in the U.S., Trump announced that Vice President Pence would lead the administration's response to the health crisis. "We're very, very ready for this," the president said. "The risk to the American people remains very low." Despite his reassurances, the situation continued to escalate in the coming weeks as the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a pandemic and major American sports leagues suspended their seasons. On March 13, one day after stocks suffered the biggest daily drop since Black Monday of 1987, the president announced that he was declaring a national emergency to free up $50 billion in federal resources to combat the health crisis. On March 18, Trump pushed out the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which provided paid sick leave for some workers, funding for food assistance programs, expanded unemployment benefits and free diagnostic testing. He followed by signing a $2 trillion relief bill on March 27, which established a $500 billion government lending program and allocated funds for both hospitals and individual taxpayers. Trump's 2020 re-election campaign. On June 18, 2019, Trump launched his 2020 re-election bid with one of his patented rallies at the 20,000-seat Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. Along with extolling his economic record, the president whipped his supporters into a frenzy by lashing out at the special counsel, witch hunt, and his political enemies, adding that his new slogan would be, "Keep America Great." "We are going to keep on working," he declared. "We are going to keep on fighting. And we are going to keep on winning, winning, winning." Subscribe.